Trump's trade war with Canada isn't just about tariffs anymore, it's about complete chaos. And the evidence is damning. Even Canadian companies that followed all the rules, that jumped through every hoop to become compliant with Trump's own trade deal, are getting hammered by arbitrary U.S. tariffs. This isn't policy, it's economic vandalism. Let's start with the facts that Trump doesn't want you to see. Patrick Fulop runs a Quebec-based company called Grappling Smarty. He makes training equipment for MMA fighters, grappling dummies that help athletes practice their moves. 75% of his sales go to American customers. And here's the kicker. Fulop did everything right. He went through the grueling process of becoming compliant with CUSMA, the Canada-US-Mexico Agreement. That's Trump's own trade deal from his first term, the one he bragged about as the greatest trade deal ever negotiated. But compliance with Trump's deal means absolutely nothing when the system is run by chaos. Fulop shared dozens of invoices with CBC News, and what they reveal is staggering incompetence. U.S. Customs and Border Protection charged him $66 on one invoice, citing one set of tariffs. Then they charged him $555, using completely different tariff codes for the exact same $250 product. We're talking about tariffs of 100 to 200% on average. As Fulop put it, there's no way that Canadian businesses can continue to serve the American customer in this environment. This isn't an isolated case. It's systematic dysfunction that Trump's administration has created through what trade experts are calling layer upon layer of bureaucracy. Scott Lincecum from the Cato Institute explains that businesses, brokers, and shippers all have no idea how to process the proper rates. The system is so broken that shipping companies like UPS are simply charging the maximum tariff rate and telling exporters to figure out refunds later. This is Trump's America First policy in action, punishing American consumers and destroying the predictability that businesses need to operate. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Trudeau is trying to clean up Trump's mess while defending Canadian interests. Canada currently enjoys the best trading terms among all U.S. trading partners, with AI, giddy 5% of Canada-U.S. trade being tariff-free and the lowest average tariff rate of any country in the world.
To be clear, Canada currently has the best deal of any of the United States trading partners in the world. 85% of our trade with the United States has no tariffs. It's tariff-free. And we have the lowest average tariff rate of any country. But we've learned a lesson over the course of the last several months, is that our relationship with the U.S. is changing. And we can't rely on our most important trading relationship as we once did.
But as recent months have shown, this favorable relationship is evolving rapidly. Canada can no longer depend on this crucial trading partnership as it has in the past. The fundamental changes in U.S. trade relationships mean Canada must respond with a comprehensive new economic strategy, one focused on building domestic strength that can withstand external shocks.
Caught up in a storm as the United States fundamentally reshapes all of its trading relationships. And to be clear, Canada currently has the best deal of any of the United States trading partners in the world. 85% of our trade with the United States has no tariffs. It's tariff-free. And we have the lowest average tariff rate of any country. But we've learned a lesson over the course of the last several months, is that our relationship with the U.S. is changing. And we can't rely on our most important trading relationship as we once did. You know, we can't control what other nations do, but we can control our destiny. So we're focusing on what we can control and building our economic strength right here at home. C'est là notre mission principale, notre étoile de Nord. Le nouveau gouvernement du Canada est déterminé à bâtir l'économie la plus forte du G7. À cette fin, nous nous lançons dans un plan ambitieux visant à assurer une nouvelle ère de prospérité après avoir surmonté l'adversité. Notre nouvelle stratégie industrielle transformera notre économie, qui passera d'une dépendance.
This strategy includes several critical components. worker retraining programs to help Canadians adapt to new economic realities, a $5 billion strategic response fund to help industries pivot to new markets, comprehensive Buy Canadian policies for government procurement starting with steel and lumber, and immediate liquidity relief for affected industries like steel and aluminum. Trump's chaos strategy is designed to undermine even his own agreements. The former president has imposed a baseline 25% tariff on Canadian goods, escalating to 35% when negotiations stalled. Even when products are technically CUSMA compliant and should be exempt, the bureaucratic nightmare Trump created means companies are getting hit anyway. This isn't about border security or fentanyl, it's about Trump using economic chaos as a weapon. The human cost is real and immediate. Canadian businesses that invested time and money to comply with Trump's trade rules are now facing an impossible situation. They're covering tariff costs for existing orders while doubling prices for fewer ones. Many are scrambling to find new markets, bolster domestic sales, and essentially rebuild their business models around Trump's unpredictability. The federal government's response has been measured but firm. In September, Canada removed most of its retaliatory tariffs on CUSMA-compliant U.S. goods as a goodwill gesture, hoping to restart productive negotiations. This move drew criticism from some quarters, with conservative leader Pierre Poilievre calling it yet another capitulation. But the strategy is more sophisticated than critics understand. Canada is demonstrating that it will follow the rules even when Trump won't, while simultaneously preparing comprehensive support for Canadian businesses and workers. The government unveiled a massive response package, billions in relief for tariff-hit businesses, a Buy Canadian procurement policy, and support for up to 50,000 workers who need retraining. A major part of this response involves regional support initiatives. The government has escalated the Regional Tariff Response Initiative from $450 million to $1 billion nationally. $80 million of this funding will be specifically allocated to Atlantic Canada businesses through the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency to help small and medium-sized businesses not just endure but thrive.
In March, we announced the Regional Tariff Response Initiative, $450 million across the country to support SMEs directly or indirectly impacted by those U.S. tariffs. And last week, I announced that we'd increase the funding for this from $450 million to $1 billion. Today, I'm proud to announce that $80 million of that funding will be dedicated to businesses right here in Atlantic Canada. And this money will flow through the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency. We'll fund small and medium-sized businesses across the region, help them not just to invest, not just to endure, but to thrive.
Atlantic Canada's economic importance cannot be overstated. More than half of Canada's $30 billion ocean economy is located in this region, which excels in fishing, manufacturing, forestry, IT, energy, and shipbuilding. The funding includes extended repayment periods up to 9 years and non-repayable contributions up to $1 million across all sectors. But here's what really exposes Trump's strategy for what it is: pure chaos designed to break Canada's will. U.S. Ambassador to Canada Pete Hoekstra actually accused Canada of pulling the rug out from USMCA because Canada imposed retaliatory tariffs on some American products. This is breathtaking hypocrisy. Trump violated his own trade agreement first, imposed arbitrary tariffs that even hit CUSMA-compliant goods, and then his ambassador has the audacity to blame Canada for responding. The timeline tells the real story. Trump started this trade war in February with 25% tariffs on Canadian and Mexican goods, claiming it was about fentanyl and border security. When Canada and Mexico responded with measured retaliation, Trump escalated to 35%. When that didn't break Canada, he imposed additional 50% tariffs on steel, aluminum, and copper. Each escalation proves this was never about legitimate policy concerns. It's about using economic warfare to force Canada into submission. Ontario Premier Doug Ford has been particularly vocal about the need for strong retaliation, warning that Trump could pull the carpet out from underneath us on CUSMA tomorrow with one signature. Ford's frustration is understandable. His province's economy is being hammered by Trump's arbitrary decisions, and the uncertainty is making it impossible for businesses to plan. The broader implications are staggering. Trump has essentially weaponized the complexity of modern trade law. By creating multiple overlapping tariff regimes, Section 232 tariffs, country-specific rates, reciprocal tariffs, and emergency powers tariffs, his administration has made it impossible for businesses to know what they'll owe on any given shipment. This isn't incompetence. It's deliberate chaos designed to exhaust Canada's ability to resist. The Canadian government understands this perfectly. That's why Canada's response goes beyond traditional trade diplomacy. The Buy Canadian policy requires federal contractors to source Canadian materials, starting with steel and lumber and now expanding to all sectors. The government is using procurement power to build domestic supply chains that can withstand Trump's chaos. They're also working with provinces and municipalities to apply similar standards, creating a comprehensive shield against American economic aggression. The agriculture sector shows how devastating Trump's approach has become. Canadian canola farmers are facing a 75.8% tariff from China, partly due to broader trade tensions that Trump's policies have inflamed. The response includes new biofuel production incentives and marketing support to help farmers find alternative markets, plus $370 million in direct support for affected canola farmers. This is what real leadership looks like, protecting your citizens while building long-term resilience. Trump's allies in the media want to frame this as a simple trade dispute, but the evidence shows something much more sinister. When CUSMA-compliant goods, products that should be exempt under Trump's own trade deal, are getting hit with arbitrary tariffs, we're not dealing with policy disagreements. We're dealing with economic warfare designed to break Canada's sovereignty. The shipping and logistics companies caught in the middle reveal the true scope of the problem. UPS, which handles much of the cross-border shipping, has essentially given up trying to apply the correct tariff rates. They're charging maximum rates and telling customers to sort out refunds late. This isn't how a functioning trade system works. It's what happens when chaos becomes policy. Phone conversations between Canadian and American leaders throughout this crisis show Canada trying to maintain diplomatic channels even as Trump escalates. After their September call, Trump said, "We want to be very good to Canada. I like Canada a lot." But Trump's actions consistently contradict his words. The tariffs keep escalating, the bureaucratic maze gets more complex, and Canadian businesses keep getting crushed by arbitrary decisions. The upcoming CUSMA review in 2026 looms over all of this. Trump's team has made it clear they want to renegotiate the deal, and Ford warns Trump might try to reopen it as early as November. This creates additional uncertainty for businesses trying to make long-term plans. How do you invest in CUSMA compliance when Trump might tear up the agreement next month? Canada's industrial strategy announcement in September shows the country preparing for this reality. The $5 billion Business Adaptation Fund, the expanded retraining programs, and the Buy Canadian policies are all designed to reduce Canada's vulnerability to Trump's chaos. If Trump wants to make trade unpredictable, Canada will build an economy that can thrive without depending on American stability. The human stories behind these numbers are heartbreaking. Patrick Fulop, the MMA equipment maker, represents thousands of Canadian entrepreneurs who played by Trump's rules only to get betrayed by Trump's chaos. These are people who invested in compliance, hired lawyers, restructured their supply chains, and did everything the Trump administration said was necessary. Now they're facing bankruptcy because Trump's own bureaucracy can't implement his own policies consistently. This is Trump's real legacy, not the deals he claims to make, but the chaos he creates, not the jobs he promises to protect, but the businesses he destroys through incompetence and malice. Canadian companies that should be thriving under his trade agreement are instead drowning in bureaucratic quicksand that serves no policy purpose except to inflict maximum pain. Canada's response shows what principled leadership looks like in the face of chaos. Rather than matching Trump's destructive tactics, Canada is building long-term resilience. The Buy Canadian policies will outlast Trump's presidency. The business adaptation funds will help Canadian companies find new markets and reduce their dependence on an unreliable American system. The worker retraining programs will prepare Canadians for an economy where Trump's chaos is just one factor among many. The international community is watching this carefully. If Trump can use bureaucratic chow as to undermine his own trade agreements with Canada, America's closest ally and most integrated trading partner, then no country's trade relationship with the United States is safe. This isn't about making America great again. It's about making America unreliable, unpredictable, and ultimately isolated. As this trade war continues, the contrast becomes clearer every day. On one side, you have Trump's chaos strategy, arbitrary tariffs, bureaucratic mazes, and constant threats designed to break the will of America's allies. On the other side, you have Canada's principled response, defending Canadian interests while building long-term economic resilience and maintaining the possibility of future cooperation. The question for American voters should be simple. Is this what you want your country to become? A nation that breaks its own agreements, punishes its closest allies, and uses economic chaos as a weapon? Because that's exactly what Trump's tariff policy has delivered. And Canadian businesses like Patrick Fulop's are paying the price for America's descent into economic vandalism.